aerospace and defense manufacturing,
machines and automation,
additive manufacturing,
smart manufacturing,
the global manufacturing economy.
Welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals, powered by SME. From the design screen to the shop floor to final assembly, we drive the conversation about making manufacturing smarter by connecting people who are passionate about manufacturing.
Welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm your host, Steve Plumb, Editor-in-Chief for SME Media. I'm joined today by Kip Hanson, a longtime contributing editor to manufacturing engineering and smart manufacturing. Most recently, we launched Smart Shop Essentials, which Kip serves as the lead editor. Kip, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve.
So the intention of Smart Shop Essentials is to help small and mid-sized manufacturers and job shops learn about and implement smart manufacturing technologies. To this end, I think you're the perfect person for the job as editor, having started your career as a machinist on the shop floor, working your way up to a foreman and other management roles, and transitioning to a consultant, author, and editor, and of course, working with SME. So, based on your experience, what are some of the things you've learned throughout your career that typically thwart efficiency and make implementing new technologies and processes difficult?
Well, that's a great question. I think probably top on the list from what I've seen over my years in the shop is primarily maybe a lack of willingness to change. Folks get set with what they know, and it's difficult. I mean, not only is there sometimes an unwillingness to change, but it also, people are they're busy making parts. They got to get stuff out the door, and who has time to undertake a project? With that, technology is changing quite rapidly, even more rapidly over the last 5 or 10 years, maybe. When I started in the shop, way back in 1979 was my first shop job. Running a hand screw. Everything was hand sharpened tool bits and cranking the handles and pulling levers and stuff like that. And you compare that to the way it is now. It's a little bit overwhelming. Especially for some of the older people who might be in management positions or own the shop, perhaps. I think it's going to come down to the younger generation that's going to have to push through change and embrace all the cool technology that is coming to the market.
Yeah, so one of the beauties of the manufacturing industry is some of the equipment can last a long time. Perhaps being refurbished along the way. So you may have some machines that have been on the shop floor for 20, 30, 40 years even, working side by side with some of the latest technology. How does that work? And is there a dichotomy to that?
I think there is a dichotomy, there's a lot of moving pieces there. It's really easy for me to sit back to a shop owner and say, hey, turn over your equipment every 10 years so that you can stay current. Not only is that not feasible financially, but why swap out a piece of equipment that is still making parts? You mentioned that the 30, 40-year-old machines. It's interesting because I just did a story in this first edition. Well, I'm sorry, it's the second edition of Smart Shop Essentials, where I spoke to a company out in South Carolina. I'm not going to give away the punchline, but basically, this is the guy's dad started the shop, and it's still filled with, I think he said he had 50, 60 different multi-spindle screw machines, which is old technology. And good luck, it's hard to find people that can operate that machines. And at the same time, the shop is embracing robotics to go on some of his twin spindle mill turn lathes. So that pretty much defines dichotomy right there. And this guy, he's not he's a smart guy, but he's not a computer geek or anything like that. So I guess the moral of that story is you can do it. You just need to embrace, get current on the technology that's out there and be willing to change and adapt and make mistakes, basically.
Yeah, you brought up a couple of great points on trends, automation being one of them, and part of that is driven by something else you mentioned, the workforce and how we're losing some of the skilled labor is retiring. New generation is coming on board that may not have that institutional knowledge. And the other thing is the lack of time for some of these shops. They're too busy putting out parts to learn this new technology. So how can companies start to go down that smart manufacturing road and embrace some of these technologies?
There's a lot of different pieces to that, to answering that question. As far as the robotics part of it goes, my first 10 years I spent in a CNC machine shop, mills and lathes. And so my mind automatically goes towards machine tending robots. And, a shop can go out and pick up a bolt-on cell. I'm not going to name any names here, but they've got a lot of bolt-on cells and drawer systems that'll sit in front of a mill or a lathe. Those are pretty easy to get into. Collaborative robots, I know, are very popular. Each of those is pretty easy to implement, especially if, and I guess one of the keys to success there is finding a good partner that can help you through that, not only to do the integration, but to stand behind you and answer dumb questions about how the thing works and, what grippers to use and all that kind of stuff. But, part of the reason why I'm excited about the magazine is we're able to present some of the more, everyone's buzzing about Industry 4.0 and the industrial Internet of Things and AI and all these buzzwords, but the fact is that shops can do a lot of basic improvements that in a lot of ways really have nothing to do with Industry 4.0. I mean, you'll hear me talk about offline presetting quite a bit, and tool vending machines and tool management systems and inline machine programming. All this stuff it's been around for quite some time. And a lot of shops still, from what I know and the people that I talk to, a lot of shops still haven't implemented these things. And so to answer your question, I think it's about becoming more efficient and automating wherever possible. And I guess to carry that one step further, once a shop does start to automate their machine tools, suddenly they'll have more free time and they can work on some of these improvement projects. Whereas before they were just, the hair was on fire. They're trying to get parts out the door. Now they got a few more hours here and there where they can perhaps mentor new employees, work on continuous improvement projects, clean up the shop, set up the tool crib, all this stuff that helps the shop become more effective and efficient.
Well, and you talked about Industry 4.0, which of course is a buzzword, and the first industrial revolution was in the 1700s, followed in the 1800s by the second, and much more recently the third and the fourth. Kind of a debate though you raised in the first issue. Are we actually in Industry 4.0? And I guess it doesn't matter, whatever you call it, there are new tools out there. Companies can embrace them, but still make good use of existing tools.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Industry 4.0 thing has been overblown, and I'm probably guilty of that too. If looking forward, I think the real Industry 4.0 is going to come out with artificial intelligence. And I was thinking about this yesterday. When I started in the shop, I was pushing the handles and feeling how the material cut and could apply more pressure or ease off, break the chip, clear the drill bit, all this stuff that a human does. And I really anticipate that within the next 5 to 10 years, probably, machine controls are going to get smart enough, whether it's AI or just machine learning, what have you. I think that's going to have a profound impact on the way shops operate. And so I'm not all wound up about Industry 4.0. I think the majority of shops, like I said earlier, are still grappling with Industry 3.0 and all the stuff that's evolved over the past 10, 20 years, probably, as well as grappling with new machine tools. I mean, you look at programming and setting up a 3-axis machining center versus a 5-axis. Oh, it's a whole lot more complicated, and the same thing goes true for mill turn centers and multitasking machines and all that. I mean, there's an awful lot to grab onto these days, and all shops can do is keep trying to conquer it, eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Another topic that was addressed in the first issue of Smart Shop Essentials was lean manufacturing, which of course has been a buzzword for a while, and it seems to come and go. Companies still struggle though on how to become lean, and probably to their own detriment that they're not using existing tools as best they can. What are some of the other low-hanging fruit where they can really make a difference?
Well, lean is definitely one of them, and like I said in that article you referenced, you don't need to go out and buy a consultant that's making $200 an hour to come in there and tell you steps you should take to get your shop more efficient. I mean, just basic stuff like 5S, like clean, organize, clean, shine. I forgot the acronym. Shine and organize and put everything in its place. I mean, any shop can do that. You don't need a consultant. And just embracing the whole concept of continuous improvement. If we sit on our laurels and keep doing things the way we were doing them 20 years ago, pretty soon you're going to lose out, and other shops can eat your lunch. And you may lose some people, and it's just, you've got to continue to adapt and get better. And to answer your question about other technologies, it's just like I said, there's so much stuff out there that, again, I hate to beat a dead horse, offline tool presetting. For $10,000 you can get started, and you really reduce setup times. And also eliminate the risk if you integrate that offline tool presetter with the machine control and send the tool offsets out to the control with a G10 command or something like that, or RFID, what have you. That's really a game changer. And to me, it's a lot of the goal here should be about reducing setup time. As any shop knows, everything is becoming high mix, low volume. The days of spending half a day to set up a CNC machine, they're gone. You should be setting up jobs, and I know it depends on the complexity and the number of tools and all that, but aim for 10 minutes, and it's doable. It takes some effort, but think about how your OEE numbers are going to improve if you can accomplish that.
Yeah, it's all about efficiency, and you talk about OEE numbers. I think it's important for companies to do some benchmarking, whether it's against competitors, even if or other industries, but also among themselves, whether it's machine to machine, plant to plant, or last year to this year. As you've been said in other articles, you really can't improve if you don't measure what you're doing.
Yeah, you're spot on, and it's kind of funny. When I did ERP consulting for about 12 years, and every time I would go into a shop, whether I was just visiting or they're helping to implement the software, I always asked, "What's your OEE?" And invariably, I'd hear people say, "Oh, we're up around 60-70%," and you dig into it, and it's like, show me the figures, and they couldn't. You've got to measure it, and that's one place. You talk about the IoT and putting sensors on machines and collecting data and all that. That's probably the best place to start, is figure out what your OE figures really are. How many hours a day is the machine actually making chips? Because that's all that counts. And start there. That's a great way to benchmark yourself, like you said, and be brutally honest about it, and put the figures up on a chalkboard, or put them up on a display monitor out on the production floor. Whatever your approach is, broadcast those numbers and use them to improve your operations.
You mentioned collecting data, big data as they call it, data analytics, data engineer, data scientist. It's all the rage. Software as a service. Can there be such a thing as too much data, or just companies not realizing what data is important and how to best utilize that?
I think there can absolutely be too much data, and the trick is to identify which metrics are most important to your operations. That shop I mentioned a minute ago from South Carolina, that one of the things that they implemented a tool from a well-known control builder, and then they spent like $10,000 to get the whole shop wired up, and immediately they were getting 70 or 80 data points from every control out on the floor. And it's overwhelming. So there again, look at the basic stuff. Look at whether the machine is even running. Look for feed rate and spindle speed overrides. I often hear from shops that the guy turned it down to 80% and it's been there for years. Dumb stuff like that is really easy to overlook. That will go. I mean, that'll pay for your investment right away. And even beyond that, once you get past the basics, yeah, sure, maybe look at an analytics software that can grapple with all of this flood of data coming its way and pick out the trends, raise its hand and say, hey, you got a problem over here on machine number 5. I mean, that's where AI, or I keep saying AI, but it's really not. It's just machine learning is going to help us cope with all of the information that's coming our way these days.
And in some cases, though, AI is coming on too. In fact, I was just at a show that gave a demonstration of a virtual assistant using AI to troubleshoot a problem in real time and help out the operator. Do you see things like that catching on?
Oh, I absolutely do. I don't think it's mature enough yet, but certainly if you've got a AI engine looking at all this data coming in, it should be very feasible for it to not only spot problems but also look for areas we can improve. If it consistently sees that you've got poor tool life using cutter X, across the universe of machines on your floor, it'd be hard for a person to spot that, but certainly a computer could, and thereby improve your operations.
Earlier, you mentioned the importance of teaming up with a good partner and tapping into some of the resources out there. What are some of the available resources that smaller shops should be looking to avail themselves to?
Well, I know when I was in the shop, we had a tooling guy, cutting tool guy. I don't remember what company he was from, but he was an old machinist, and he knew a lot of tricks and a lot of ways to optimize tool life. And I think all of us have that. Maybe it's less so because you don't have the guy coming in on Thursday morning and bringing you donuts. A lot of it's online these days, but in some ways that's even better. You can go on to. I've spoken to a lot of younger shop owners that they go to YouTube, they go to TikTok, they go on to LinkedIn. they develop these online relationships, if you will, and can throw out questions like, "Hey, I'm having a hard time with this, milling this pocket or whatever it is," and they'll get feedback from other shop owners, as well as some of the cutting tool and tooling folks that we should be utilizing more frequently. It's free advice, so why not use it?
So yeah, a couple of things that we had in the works, I know, are facilitating a smart workforce, managing change and creating a culture of transformation, and kind of just setting up the big pictures, what the prerequisites of smart manufacturing are, as well as looking at some success stories and case studies.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it earlier as far as the change transformation. Shops have got to be willing to adapt and try out new things. So obviously establishing a culture of change in your shop is going to be important. And like you mentioned earlier, the measuring, benchmarking yourself will be also very important, because if you're going to try new things, how do you know if they're any better unless you're actually measuring them and checking your progress, and upskilling your workforce to be more oriented towards automation and data analysis and just techie stuff, connecting equipment to the network and so on. All that's going to be very important going forward, and we're going to cover it in future editions.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's next, and as we move forward with Smart Shop Essentials. So, Kip, thanks for joining us today and sharing your insights. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and I always feel smarter afterwards.
All right. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Sure, and to access the digital version of Smart Shop Essentials, Manufacturing Engineering, and Smart Manufacturing magazines, please visit us at advancedmanufacturing.org, where you can also learn more about the latest manufacturing trends and hear more podcasts. Again, that's advancedmanufacturing.org.